Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Healthcare Marketing Executive, brought to you by Outcomes Rocket. I'm excited to have Jakub Grajcar on our podcast today. He is an outstanding leader in marketing, a podcaster, and serves as the head of marketing at Talkie.ai. Such a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Jakub.
Thank you, Saul. Thank you. I just got finished recording an episode of our show, Scaling Practice Management, so I'm in such a good mood coming into this. Looking forward to the conversation.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love podcasting too. It's energizing. As we were chatting before we hit record here, great way to connect, just an awesome way to expand the network. Getting into it, before we dig into our questions, would love to know more about you and also about Talkie.ai.
Of course. So myself, been a marketer for 10 years now. I started in the software development industry. Then I moved into marketing agencies, into project management. I was working with an agency that did ClickUp implementations for a while because I was really passionate about that tool. And now I landed in healthcare marketing at Talkie.ai. We're an AI medical receptionist company. We're helping over 300,000 unique patients every month with our AI medical receptionists. So we're really helping unburden the front desk, stop the phone from ringing off the hook, and really help with that piece of the equation. Very happy to be part of that process and to help medical practices in any way that we can at Talkie.ai. So I've been here for almost a year and a half, and it's been a really fun ride. This is definitely a very exciting part, a very exciting industry, both healthcare and AI. A lot of changes, basically week to week in the way we do things. So it's really exciting. And in terms of marketing, my main background is like in content marketing, inbound marketing, it used to be called, and in podcasting too. I'm really passionate about this. I was going to say art form, content form. It can be both. Let's do both.
It can be both. Yeah. It's both. Well, that's really great. And yes, the business is moving so fast. There's so much change. Every single week is a new week, and it's hard to keep up with. So you need somebody like you or like our listeners that stays on top of these trends to help move the needle. Trends in SEO, AEO are changing all the time. How you do paid media is changing constantly. So Jakub, excited to have you here. And so let's get into some of the things that we like to cover on the podcast here. When you think about common misconceptions that people have about healthcare marketing, what's one of those?
So my whole career, I've been in B2B marketing more in general. And I think the main misconception there, and I think it applies to healthcare marketing too, to some extent, is that people don't make enough room for the personal and the communication. So I run a podcast, for example, for Talkie, and I could be running it in a way where, and this is just a personal approach, right? I could be running it in a way where we get into brass tacks from the very beginning. We get into the substantive questions from the very beginning. I tend not to do that because I feel like people want to also connect, especially now in the age of AI. There's so much reused AI slop content, right? So the one thing that we have left are our personalities. That's the kind of the final moat that we have. And the more you can lean into it in your marketing, I think the better off you'll be. So show off the faces, record the reel, run the podcast, and on the podcast, talk about your personal stuff as well. Make it a point to ask my guests about like their favorite food, their places they love to travel, the hobbies that they have, because I think that creates this connection. YouTubers know this, for example. If you've been on YouTube for any length of time, if you have your favorite YouTubers, have you ever asked yourself, why are they your favorite YouTubers? Why do you follow them? If they plug a product, if they advertise something, why do they get paid so much for these advertisements? That's because they create these parasocial relationships with their audiences. And on YouTube, somehow it's so natural for people to do this. I feel like as you go into kind of the more buttoned up marketing, people forget about that and they don't focus on that enough. So I think you need to lean into the personal, and that's the main misconception that I would point to here.
That's awesome, man. I agree. Healthcare could be a little too buttoned up sometimes, and that does remove the human element. And so as you think about all the work that you're doing for Talkie, content and podcasting, what's a trend that excites you right now? And how has that transformed into results for you in campaigns and different things?
Yeah, so I feel like that one I would have a two-parter of an answer, because there's a trend that excites me, that I feel called out by, and I need to get more active here. And that's marketers becoming builders. I feel like it used to be when there was a topic that came up, marketers would say, okay, let's write about it. Let's maybe record a video about it. They were thinking in terms of content. But because content is so commoditized these days, marketers are thinking more about, okay, let's build something around it. Let's build a calculator for this. Let's vibe code a game about this and see how that works out. Some brands are doing that because the barrier to entry for creating code or something more tangible, or like a tool that brands can use, that's becoming more and more accessible. The barrier to entry has been lowered, right? So I'm excited about marketers becoming builders, about marketers talking about Claude code. And I'm calling myself out here because I feel like for that, perhaps not doing enough for right now. And I need to do like a proper research spike for this. In terms of something we've done at Talkie, we're in an interesting niche, I would say, because while it might look at first glance that we're addressing like all of US healthcare, we're actually only deeply integrated with 4 EHR systems. For a marketer, this creates a really interesting challenge, because I can't like boil the ocean, right? Addressing everybody running a medical practice, even if I pick a certain level of scale. So what's worked for us is definitely putting a lot of effort into the industry conferences, and specifically the conferences related to the EHRs. So for example, last year, I had my first chance to actually visit the US, which was for the ModMed Momentum conference in Florida, right? Big adventure, even on a personal level. But when I was there, I really put the pedal to the metal in terms of getting personally engaged, not just standing at the booth. And the benefit that we had was we had 3 people there. So some people could man the booth. I was the guy who had we had these glass wipes and these mints, right? I had like my hands full of them. I was looking for people with glasses, and I was like, glass wipe, just handing them out, starting conversations, and then getting them interested in the product. Get more active at these conferences. Put in some footwork. That can really help. And we really booked a ton of demos at that conference. It was not just a great adventure, but also very productive in a pipeline sort of way, which is what we marketers love the most, of course.
I love that, Jacob. And I think too often we get too comfortable in thinking that, hey, I set up the booth, everything looks great, I got the landing pages going, the campaigns pre, during, and post, and then you get there and you're like, okay, like, why is nobody coming here? Well, the reality is you got to work the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to work the floor, right? You got to work the floor. You can't make it work for you. So that's cool that you did that and brought the hustle and bustle to the conference. A challenge that a lot of healthcare marketers face that in my view isn't being talked about enough is really like, hey, the reality of what are we going to do with AI as it relates to different positions within the organization? Give us your take on that.
Sure. So I think this coin has 2 sides to it, because on the one hand, I feel like marketing teams have shrunk. I have seen that, because for a lot of things, you look at a marketer today versus a marketer in 2016, you needed more specialized roles, you needed a bigger team. Right now, marketers are expected to do more with less. You've heard this, it's probably been mentioned on this very show before, right? And on the one hand, I think it is a bit of extra pressure on marketers. On the other, I feel like we do actually have to adapt and to go with the times here. I'm calling myself out on this very show that I'm not using Claude code enough, even if I'm using Claude itself quite a bit for writing content, because I feel like sometimes I see this defeatist approach in marketers where it's like, oh, it got so much harder. The expectations are so much higher. I feel it too. But the truth of the matter is this is the time to learn, and this is the time to upskill ourselves while still keeping it realistic with management that some things neither Claude nor ChatGPT nor any other tool can do just yet. And you still need to invest your time in like direct contact with your market, talking with prospects, attending client meetings, maybe veering a little bit off the subject here. But what I mean is there's still the issue of capacity, right? There's still the issue of capacity that leadership needs to have a realistic view on. But to be honest, we can do more with less these days using AI, and we need to keep that in mind.
100%. Yeah, it's tough, right? And I've had conversations with clients and also colleagues around this topic. And the reality is, like, just left the conversation with a client that was going to hire a marketing coordinator. And after some discussions with their CFO, they said, hey, you know what? We're going to set up an instance of Claude to see how much of what we would want this job description to execute, how much can we get done without a human? And then whatever we have left, do we actually hire for it? So it's a very real thing. And I agree with you, Jacob, like learning as fast as we can, staying on top of our game is definitely the key, because the reality is this is going to continue to happen and it will continue to accelerate. So I think you bring up a great point. Like, don't be defeatist. Like, roll up your sleeves, get that learning spike going, and make it happen for yourself. When you think about what moves the needle, oftentimes is bold and risky. Can you share anything that you've done bold and risky lately?
I would point to Talkie's podcast, and here's why. I mean, starting a podcast is not maybe such a bold move and maybe not so flashy, right? But what I mean is the podcast is a great networking tool for us at Talkie. And even if what's risky about it perhaps is that I can't easily draw a line between the podcast and like direct pipeline, right? But still, healthcare being such a relationship-based industry, it helps so much. It's led to so many productive conversations for us in terms of partnerships, in terms of additional reach, follow-up activities like webinars, to be able to open with, hey, I don't know you. I just found you on LinkedIn, but let's do a podcast. I mean, I don't have to tell you about this, right?
Right.
Because that's the name of the game for you as well. So I think that's something that I campaigned on as I was joining Talkie. I was saying, I can see this is a very relationships-based industry. Let's start a podcast and let it open doors for us. And it has. And it's really picking up momentum now, a year in. And I would like to, from this point, thank my leadership for continuing to support me with the podcast, because
That's
it takes a little bit of time to get going. But yes, that was a good move.
And so how many episodes in are you?
I just recorded episode 25, just like an hour ago.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's progress.
Thank you. The statistic I think is most get like canceled or lose momentum after like before episode 3 or episode 10 or something. Anyway,
yeah, I thought it was like 7. Yeah, somewhere in there, right? Somewhere in there. And you're at 25. And it does take time to get it off the ground. And to your point, it brings the humanity into it, opens up opportunities. So kudos to you for doing it. Kudos to your leadership team for supporting it. We always on the show feel like collaboration is the best way to bring the best out of marketers into their day-to-day. So what we do is each show, we ask our marketers a question that they'd like to ask our future guest. So today I've got a question for you that was asked by a previous guest. And that is, if you can ban the use of AI anywhere in healthcare marketing, where would you ban it?
That's a great one. I need to check the episode where that was asked. So
Colin Hung. Colin Hung, he is the chief marketing officer at Sway Health.
Right. He's with Healthcare IT Today, right?
Yeah, Healthcare IT Today and also Sway Health. Yep.
Yeah. John Lin was a guest on our show as well. So there's an indirect connection there.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm honored to get his question, that's for sure. And shout out to Colin. And that must be a good way for you to get your guests to listen to the next episode. So the way I would answer that is, I think AI should be banned in anything that's related to giving appreciation to people. That irks me so much.
Tell me more.
I'm thinking from the context of us being a health tech organization, admittedly, right? But we have a kudos channel on our Slack, right? And the messages that land on the kudos channel, the messages that land there need to be handwritten, okay? Just leave this one thing to your human brain and to your human hands. Write that message yourself, okay? Yeah, because if you're writing kudos, it should be from the heart. It shouldn't be from an LLM, right? So that one thing I would definitely ban the use of AI for, because it should be sincere. So that's what I was saying.
I love that. How do you feel about handwritten notes?
Handwritten notes? Love them. At one of my previous companies for Valentine's, we did these handwritten kudos. That was an office culture, not a remote position. And I still have some of these kudos somewhere in my drawer. And I remember what was on those notes. So yes, I am pro handwritten notes. Hate writing by hand, but love receiving those.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I think for the personal touch, I think I heard you call it a moat or human touch, or that's a moat. honor your moat and honor your humanness and write it yourself. And whether you type it or write it, just do it yourself. I think that there's heart in that.
Exactly.
Jacob,
honor your personality, honor your mode. I love that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just needed to parrot that.
No, for sure. No, it's a good emphasis. So Jacob, what question would you like to leave for our next guest?
So this is a very special question for me because I'm running a podcast, not just for Talkie, but my own personal one on the side. And I positioned the whole podcast around this one question. It's universal. It'll work for this show as well. It can be more in a professional context. But the question is, what is one connection? It can be a person, a place, an organization, or even an idea that changed the trajectory of your life or your career. Take it in any direction you want, dear future guest of the show. But that's the question I would love to hear the answer for. I love to hear those stories. Nobody's 100% self-made. And I think we should appreciate the people who helped us around the way, or the places, or the organizations, or the ideas.
That's awesome. So the question is, a person that has changed your life for the better? A connection?
It can be a person. It can be, I've had various answers to that question. Somebody said the gym. Another person said myself or the military.
So it could be a person or a thing or an idea, but something that changed your life forever for the better. Okay, got it. Well, there you have it, folks. What has been a connection, whether it be an idea, person, event that you experienced that changed your life forever? We'd love to hear about that. You don't have to be our next guest to answer it. We always enjoy hearing feedback from all of our listeners on these questions because they generate fun conversations and interesting ideas for all of us to act on. Jacob, this has been an incredible opportunity to connect with you. If people want to get in touch, where can they find you and where can they find Talkie.ai?
Look me up on LinkedIn. I'm Jakub Grajcar. I'm there. I'm most active on that platform. As for Talkie.ai, just go to Talkie.ai, TALKIE.ai. That's where we are. And from there, you can find everything else. Our podcast, Scaling Practice Management. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the usual platforms, and anything else that's relevant to Talkie, you'll find there. And I'm hoping to connect with you.
That's awesome, Jacob. Thank you for that. Folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Healthcare Marketing Executive. In the show notes, you'll find all the ways to get in touch with Jacob and his team at Talkie.ai. Check out his podcast, where you'll be able to hear more stories around scaling practice management and what they do at Talkie. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And Jacob, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. This was a blast.